A decorated Canadian veteran goes to the Invictus Games, Prince Harry's Games, as the face of Team Canada. He fractures his spine on the court. He comes home and he finds out he was never insured for a single dollar. That story is why I do this show. I'm Paula Froelich. After 30 years covering royals, stars, and power players, I can tell you with certainty the image is almost always a lie. We go behind the velvet rope, past the publicist, and straight to the truth. Breaking news, naming names, showing you exactly how the sausage gets made. The real story is always better than the one they wanted you to hear. This is The Scoop with Paula Froelich. 550 competitors from 21 nations competed at the Dusseldorf Invictus Games in September 2023. 40 million euros plus. That works out to roughly 73,000 euros per athlete. For a charity event for wounded veterans, now for an international adaptive sports event like the Invictus Games, founded and spearheaded by Prince Harry in 2013, insurance would typically cover three categories: athlete accident, injury coverage, event liability, and medical evacuation, as well as repatriation. Industry rates suggest total athlete insurance for an event this size could have run anywhere from $275,000 to just over €1 million. A drop in the bucket compared to what Invictus actually spent in Dusseldorf. So where did the money go? Because apparently it didn't go to the athletes. Today, I'm talking to Scott Snow, a 43-year-old retired Canadian Navy diver, an Invictus competitor, and the poster boy for Team Canada in Dusseldorf. He was featured in the official promotional video for the Games. He talked about his two daughters, his battle with PTSD and depression, and the 12 surgeries he had already undergone for his service-related injuries before he ever set foot in Germany. He went to Dusseldorf to compete in archery, rowing, and wheelchair rugby. And during his very first wheelchair rugby match, the chair he was using, which had no restraint strap, toppled backwards. His head and back slammed into the court floor under the weight of his 250-pound frame. He finished the game not knowing the full extent of what had just happened to him. He came home to Canada and found out he had fractured his cervical and lumbar spine, torn his quadriceps, and suffered head trauma. He's had 2 surgeries since. His mobility has been so severely reduced that he has had to move into a retirement home just to get around. And even worse, he was not covered by a single dollar of insurance. If Scott had been a currently serving Canadian Armed Air Force member, every cent would have been covered. But he was a veteran. And veterans, it turns out, were not insured in a game for veterans. Scott now has filed a $2.4 million lawsuit against the Department of National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces for rehabilitation costs, accessibility needs, pain and suffering, and loss of income. Scott Snow, thank you so much for being here and for your courage in speaking out. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And Scott, you are joined by your lawyer, Philip Millar. Philip, thank you for being here as well. I appreciate you as well.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
So, Scott, before we get to Dusseldorf, you served for 15 years as a Navy diver and Special Forces operator with the Canadian Special Operations Forces Command. Walk me through your service. Like, where did you serve? What happened to you? And how did you end up with 12 surgeries before you ever even got to Dusseldorf?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm from a small town in Newfoundland, Gander, Newfoundland. And I joined the forces when I was 20, and I did 15 years. I started off as a port inspection diver for 5, and then I switched jobs over to firefighter for 5. And then I went on and did a selection and went to Canadian Special Forces for 5 years myself. And as I was getting out, my mental health wasn't that great. I realized, so I went and got some help for that, and then ultimately the physical injuries added up over the years. So I had to replace knee and a replace shoulder, and I believe at last count it was 14 or 15 surgeries at this point.
Wow. And why did you want to compete in the Invictus Games? What did that mean to you?
Well, when I was getting out of the forces, I got out abruptly. I filled out a medical form, and do you have nightmares? Do you have trouble sleeping? And I said yes. I started crying, and my career was over. So for me, I had two girls in the meantime, Reese and Charlotte, and I really wanted to show them like me in some type of uniform, as well as it gave me, my final swan song to go out kind of the way I wanted to go out.
Oh, gosh, yeah, that's completely understandable. And most interesting thing for me was you were actually the poster boy for Team Canada. They made a whole video about you. And what was that experience like being held up as the face of the games?
Well, I would say there was me and a couple others, but yes, like I was one of them that they highlighted, and it was just really disappointing. The team promoted a team, and someone like me coming from the military and a special forces background, and I just I buy into the team motto. If you
Yeah.
say you're going to be there, you're going to be there, and they weren't.
And, there's been a lot of talk about who pays for what? Who paid for you to go to Dusseldorf? This was your team, you joined it, you were one of the faces of it. So who paid for you to go to Dusseldorf? And if it was you, how much did it cost?
Um, as far as I know, it's a group of people like True Patriot Love and the government, and donations, and so the government in essence sponsors the team to go, and Veterans Affairs gives donations, and so it was no cost to me to go to the games, and as well my family was no cost to them as well.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Did you have to sign any paperwork, forms, or contracts by the Invictus organization? And if so, what did that paperwork say?
No, well, we sign contracts about like your conduct, like a drug policy,
Mhm.
media policy, the standard ones. But as far as the medical insurance that we were given, it's just to obtain travel insurance.
Hmm, interesting. You paid for your travel insurance.
No, I actually had travel insurance, and
Great.
where it wasn't explained, I just thought travel insurance, like everyone would think, is like if you go down south, you have travel insurance. So I had travel insurance, lots of it.
Excellent. So when you arrived in Dusseldorf, what was your impression of the operation? Did it feel like a well-run, well-funded event?
It was amazing. It was there was 30, 40,000 people at the opening ceremonies. It's at best I can describe it as it's like the Olympics. Yeah, it's a class act organization, or like ran, I should say, organized. It was great. Yeah.
Wow. So that's basically you saw where the money was going in terms of production, spending, hospitality. Like it looked like it was again like the Olympics, right?
There was no expenses spared for the production and whatnot of the actual game itself. No, none.
Wow. So walk me through September 10th, 2003, your first wheelchair rugby match against the US. What happened?
Obviously super excited, super nervous, and as the video that's widely distributed, I was being passed the ball, and I being so at the games in wheelchair rugby, I was not in a wheelchair. I wasn't wheelchair bound going there, but it's about inclusivity. So half our team was wheelchair bound and half were not. And so your natural reaction, if you're not wheelchair bound, is to reach up and get the ball. And I reached up to get the ball, and I wasn't restrained in, and I fell back, as the video shows, and the rest is history.
So why didn't the chair that you were in not have a restraint strap? And did you know going in, were you warned about any equipment issues?
I can't answer why because I can't answer why. But at the training camps that we were attending from Team Canada, we always wear restraint straps. Like all the training camps we did, but I can't answer why they weren't there.
That's Were you concerned when you didn't see a restraining strap?
Yes, I was. Well, no, I wasn't. I don't really know. Like it was just such
Mhm.
a blur. It was so excitement. There was so much going on. There's thousands of people cheering you on, and I just I was such a blur. I didn't even think like I don't know even know how to answer that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I understand completely. So you got up after the injury, you finished the game, and what were you feeling physically at this point?
We have so much adrenaline going that
Mhm,
you just you don't think. But when we stopped, the we did go to the medical clinic on site,
mhm.
and was given a quick check over, and no follow up, no X-rays or nothing like that, and that was it.
So, what did they tell you when they looked at you? The medical team is looking at you, they say, "You don't need an X-ray." What exactly did they tell you, if anything, was wrong with you, and how did you feel when you heard that?
Uh, it was I don't recall what was exactly said at the time, but
Mhm.
just to take it easy, monitor it, um, and then eventually so myself and the Team Canada doctor just decided that I can't go forward with it. I had a concussion and whatnot, so I took myself and out of the games.
Oh, wow. So they did say you had a concussion at the time.
As far as I recall, yes, yeah, and the doctor did from Team Canada did come by and check on me and stuff like that. But as far as the
Mhm,
physical injuries, we
mhm.
never did anything further.
Huh,
Um, yeah.
that's interesting. So you get back to Canada and resume physiotherapy. When did you find out the true extent of what had happened?
Well, I started feeling tingling in my hands, and obviously, previously having 13 surgeries, 14 surgeries, I had a reliable physiotherapist. And when I went to see her, she said that she wouldn't work on me because obviously I'd hurt my neck, and she used some words about being stubborn. And she said, "Go get an X-ray." And I went and got an X-ray, and they said that my neck was fractured.
Oh my gosh. I mean, your stomach must have dropped at that point. That's a huge deal. And I mean, you've now had 2 surgeries, thousands of dollars later. What does your life look like since this all happened in Dusseldorf?
Well, obviously, my mental health struggles weren't that great. I felt truly like abandoned. I did. I'm a team person, and no phone calls, no checkup, no nothing. So I've attended a couple programs since for my mental health. I wear a fentanyl patch now, like a pain patch, just to get through the day.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So life's changed a little, that's for sure.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like a lot. Did they with the surgeries, did they fix the fracture? What actually did they do in these surgeries?
So they removed my two discs, my C5, C6, C6, C7, and they put in a couple wedges. And in actual fact, the screw is actually, I'm not sure it's in the wrong place or not, but it's clearly coming out already. It's so I have to get another surgery to fix that. And then I had some screws and pins put in my lower back about 2 weeks after that. And during the surgery, um, my quad got tore off my tendon, just manipulation of my leg because I had my knee replaced. It, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, it's ironic. You didn't need a wheelchair before Dusseldorf, and now you do.
After all the injuries, I couldn't walk, I couldn't lift, bend, and the rehab center here in my city in Kingston, they had no beds, so I had to go to respite care in a nursing home. So I was there for 2 3 months,
Oh my gosh.
and just all the resources would come to me: physio, massage, you name it would come to me. But it's with two kids, it's hard because I can't do what I would normally do with them. I can't.
Well, yeah, you
So yeah.
couldn't put him to bed every night.
Well, and there's a lot of activities. They're 13 and 11, and there's a lot of activities I can't do with them now. And yeah, it's disheartening some days for sure.
I mean, what kind of this is all sounds so expensive. First of all, $5,000 a month for the months that you were in the nursing home. Did you have to put in a wheelchair ramp in your home? Did you have to make your actual house wheelchair friendly? And therapies, as we all know, are very expensive. I mean, are there things you've had to abandon altogether because of the cost?
Well, a long time ago. It's been a long time now, but the money runs out at some point, and I was going through a separation at the same time. So I kept it up as long as I could, but I never had to put in a wheelchair ramp or nothing. I waited till I was like able to walk and stuff to get out of the nursing home. But certainly I had a lot of help from a lot of friends and family, and yeah, it's pretty difficult. But I stopped physio, massage, and all that a long time ago because at $100 a pop, for example, it gets expensive 3 or 4 times a week as a single dad.
And this isn't covered at all by any insurance or Canada's national healthcare.
No, so like OHIP, they are provincial insurance. Like they don't cover nursing homes and stuff like that.
They
No,
don't cover physio after surgery. They don't cover anything.
not for what I needed. I believe I did have 5 or 10 that were covered.
Hmm.
But as far as Veterans Affairs, for my service-related injuries that I already had, I was covered for life, like my shoulder and my knee. But for
Hmm.
this year, it's on my own, yeah, for sure.
So everything that happened in Dusseldorf, all the spinal and back injuries, that's on you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, for yes.
Wow, that is absolutely shocking. When did you find out you weren't covered by insurance?
Shortly after we got back, I called and I asked for some help, and I got no return. And I called my insurance company, and they said that my travel insurance doesn't cover international sporting events. Um, so that's when I found out. So I called, and no joy.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what went through your mind when you heard that? It's shocking. You, as a Canadian citizen, everyone always brags about the Canadian healthcare system, how they take care of everything. It's shocking because you are a Canadian citizen. Everyone always talks about how the Canadian health system is so great and it covers everything. And you went as a citizen and a veteran over to represent your country in the Invictus Games. You got hurt and now you're left holding the bag. I mean, what goes through your mind?
Well, not to just to correct, not to mislead, but like my surgeries are covered under our national health care, so I didn't have to pay out of pocket for any surgeries or whatnot. But all of my rehabilitation, I have paid for, yes. And it's just like I give people the analogy here in Canada. It's like Sidney Crosby having insurance, but the defense don't.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I mean, here's what I find staggering. If you had still been a serving member of the Canadian Armed Forces, every cent would have been covered. You were a veteran and you weren't. Did anyone ever explain to you how that distinction was made?
No, no, they did not, and that is the issue. And as well, like to be a part of the Invictus Games, the prerequisite is you have to have a service-related injury. But in essence, if you had to get your own insurance, you're recruiting the uninsurable because who's going to insure someone with mental health, 12 surgeries, and multiple injuries?
E- Exactly. I mean, did you ever get a straight answer from Invictus or the Canadian Armed Forces about why veterans weren't covered?
I tried multiple times myself, and then that's where Philip came in to give me a hand and let him take over.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, you've described this publicly and you've talked to me about being left behind. And what do you mean by that?
Well, in our training camps and in the media, when everyone's there, we would get up and do presentations, and Team Canada, we're together. But when the going got rough, there was no one there. As where I'm the opposite, I would have been there no matter what.
Yes, I mean, that isn't that what the military is about? No man left behind. And we're there for you when you need us because you were there for us when we needed you. I mean, it's absolutely just shocking to me. You're now suing the Department of National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces for 2.4 million. Why are you not suing Invictus as well?
Well, first of all, what hurts the most is that they openly and publicly admitted it in the House of Commons. And that's what hurts the most, why I'm still here on my own. But
What
as
did
far
they
as
admit?
as
Please,
far
please go back.
oh, sorry.
Please go back. What did they admit and who admitted?
You can if you Google the CBC article Scott Snow Invictus and you scroll
Mhm.
down, you'll see the Minister of Veterans Affairs. She gets up and someone asks a question and she says, "Oh my God, I can't believe we did this. We will make sure that this is rectified for the next games." And they went and got a policy through a week later.
Yeah, the next games. But where does that leave you?
It left me right where I am now. They
I
didn't
mean,
backdate. They didn't backdate it.
well, also, why are you not suing Invictus? It did happen on their watch, after all.
I would have to refer to Philip for that.
Okay, Philip, why are you also not including Invictus in this? I mean, again, it happened on their watch.
Mhm.
They were the ones who said, "Oh, we were," either through the overall Invictus Games or Invictus Canada said, "Absolutely, come be on the team. We've taken care of everything, travel, hotel, whatnot."
There's more than enough pockets to cover what has happened to Scott. But the beauty of Scott as a human being is he doesn't want to do anything to hurt a veterans organization. And so he respects what Invictus is doing in terms of allowing people to have meaning. And so he literally didn't want to go after the venue that was helping men and women have purpose in their life. He just thought
Mhm.
he should get coverage for the damages he wants. And so he's not a litigious guy. He's one of the good people who just wants to be taken care of. And so he didn't want to go after everybody. And
Mhm.
he just asked if he could speak to the head of the Invictus Games to tell him what he experienced. That's all that Scott said. And then there was no lawsuit against him. And they met with him and they had a conversation.
And what did they tell him?
Scott, you can talk to that.
Scott,
We had
when
a
you
sorry.
met with the head of Invictus Games to tell them what had happened, what did they tell you?
I had a great conversation, and at the time it was the outgoing CEO and the new incoming names I can't remember.
Mhm.
But I expressed my concerns why it was, and I asked if I could come back to the games at some point because they have an unconquered team which is made up of all different countries. Because I really wanted to finish my games and go out the way I wanted to, but I never heard back on that request.
Oh, well, that's interesting. So they were kind of nice when you were there, but there was no follow-up, which is disappointing. I mean, Philip, you actually had said in the past, it defies logic that the CAF would send athletes to compete in a nationally sponsored event without insurance or basic safety. I tend to agree, but it also, for me, defies logic that Invictus wouldn't have insurance, and we'll get into that in a minute. But it also defies logic that they wouldn't, I don't know, just keep in touch and see how you're doing. This is for warriors, after all. This is for people who have been hurt, and it was on their watch that you were hurt. So that, frankly, disappoints me. But what has the government response been since you filed this lawsuit?
We struggle in our civil courts with how long it takes to get justice. And I think your
Mhm.
questions have raised the issue. It seems clear. Like, why can't you just take care of the person? Like, why do you have to stretch it out and have everybody look at it and go through this, you know, multi-year legal process to try to get justice? Whereas the government when it's important, can move fast, right? And I don't
Mhm.
know why they just didn't offer him compensation right away. Just because, it just makes sense. We take care of our veterans. This man went to the Invictus Games. He was hurt there. There was administrative mistakes. There was no health insurance. It would have cost nothing just to take care of this guy so that other veterans knew they'd be taken care of. It's a heartbreaking story.
Absolutely. And when both of you hear that Dusseldorf cost over 40 million euros, which averages out to 73,000 euros per athlete, and yet athletes like you weren't insured. I mean, what goes through your mind? You were literally the face of these games. They used your story, your daughters, your surgeries to promote the event. And how does it feel to have been used that way and then left with nothing and a lot of debt?
To be honest, um, that's the first I heard of the number of what it costs per athlete.
Mhm.
I'm actually taken back by it, and the fact that they admitted it in our government and fixed it, and I'm still here by myself. It just it's a tough one.
And and
Well,
and veterans, they were in the military. So when you're getting paid travel in the military, so I was in the military as well,
mhm.
they take care of the stuff. Like they ask you to show up, you sign some papers, and you're taken care of. So I can't believe there was ever a veteran who went to the Invictus Games who thought there was no insurance for them. Right? It's unbelievable that that wasn't there. Now it's corrected, but Scott's point that they corrected it but never were used their initiative to help him is very disappointing.
Absolutely. And how do you feel when, I crunched some numbers, and if Invictus had had insurance for athletes, now understand it's expensive because, people have prior injuries, as you found out. People don't necessarily want to insure people with prior injuries. However, it would have cost them at most 1 million euros, but their budget was 40 million, and they could have easily covered that. How does that make you feel?
Hmm. Not that great. These numbers are first like I'm hearing of it.
Mm,
So it's like for what I've gone through, me and my family doesn't sit that well, and
uh,
especially it's misleading because when you join Team Canada, you follow the Canadian Forces drug policy, media policy, code of conduct policy, all these CFAOs, the administrative orders, but everything but medical. Yeah.
it's shocking that they would leave that out. It just kind of seems to me that that is common sense. You're working with people who have been wounded before. Your number one priority should be safety, and it should be health insurance. It's just it drives me crazy. And then to hear what you've had to go through, and I just it it drives me crazy. I mean, Prince Harry founded these games. He's the public face of Invictus. And has anyone from his office bothered to reach out to you? Has anyone bothered to, from Invictus, after that initial meeting, bothered to reach out and say, "Hey, let's help out here."
Well, to be honest with you, this might be news to Philip too. So, but to be honest with you, I'm not I didn't want to go through this process. I didn't want to go this far. So, like, I originally, my mental health wasn't the greatest after I felt pretty abandoned, but I emailed the government, Veterans Affairs, I emailed Prince Harry's Foundation,
Mhm.
and I said to them, I just want to help and make this better. And I never heard like from anybody, to be honest with you. And I've emailed them both, all three, a couple times.
That's insane. You you've reached out, and you were their face, and they've literally, the Invictus Games has walked away and kept moving on. I'm absolutely
And
shocked.
again, during the camp, it was mentioned in a two line, which I'm sure we can provide to you, but it just says veterans are required to obtain travel insurance. And the difference between travel insurance and international sporting event insurance is two different things.
Yeah, you would think that they would know that. I mean, I'm still hearing this, I'm still shocked that Invictus is not involved in this lawsuit. But what do you want people to understand about the gap between what Invictus represents publicly and what you actually experienced on the ground after the games? Because it does sound like up until your injury, it was a good experience. Unfortunately, you kind of drew the short straw. And what what do you want people to know about this gap of what they say and do publicly versus what's happened to you on the ground since?
It's disappointing. Like I really enjoyed like the process of the Invictus Games and going to the games. And even if I had got my injury and had support after, it probably would have been a great experience. But I just don't know how you can take people that are already susceptible. Some of us have cognitive disabilities as it is, and have a two-tier system on one team. The disappointment is just, well, I've done two mental health programs since, and life has changed. But I just try to move forward. But I don't know what the future is going to hold for me or my health. But yeah, it's disappointing.
And what would you say directly to the Invictus Games Foundation or Prince Harry right now?
You know, Prince Harry personally
Mhm.
was he spent some time with my daughters and was very good. But if you make a mistake, I tell my kids, if you make a mistake, make it right. Say you're sorry and move on. So just a sorry, make it right. You went and got an insurance policy for the future. So like make it right for the ones
Mhm.
who weren't involved in that, and say you're sorry and let's move on.
A simple apology. That's amazing that you haven't even gotten that. I'm s just jaw drop on that one. And what would you say to the veterans who are being recruited, not just from Canada, because as you've pointed out, Canada is now covering the veterans, but what would you say to the veterans from around the world who are being recruited to compete in Birmingham 2027? What do they need to know before they sign up?
I would say apply, compete, enjoy it, embrace it, but make sure you read the fine print and make sure you know what you're covered for and what you're not, because there's always one of, and it just so happens I was it. So hopefully it changes for lots of countries.
I agree. I mean, is there anything you want people to know that I have not asked you?
No, no, it's not about the money. It's about the
Mhm.
principle that how you can knowingly put people at risk, and you're recruiting people who are, like I say, uninsurable almost, or to the point that if you have to pay for your own insurance, you can't afford it because it's astronomical. That make it right.
Absolutely. Make it right. I agree. Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you being so open about something that is so personal and traumatic. I just thank you. I really appreciate it. And Philip, thank you as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Scott Snow went to Dusseldorf as the face of Team Canada. Invictus used his story, his daughters, his surgeries, his struggle to promote their games. He competed, he was injured, he came home with a fractured spine, two surgeries, a move, albeit temporary, into a retirement home at 43, and a bill he was never supposed to have to pay. 40 million euros, 550 athletes, and not enough accountability to cover the man they put on their poster. We reached out to the Invictus Games Foundation and the Canadian Department of National Defense for comment. We will update you when and if they respond. Thank you all so much.